Yo, what's up guys? Chase the Bro here, and welcome back to another Elden Ring DLC build video. Today I'm going to be using my Pure Sorcerer to showcase some of my favorite spells that were introduced in the DLC. They honestly added so many great sorceries, but one of my favorites has to be Gravitational Missile. This thing is amazing and you can use it a few different ways. When you cast it naturally, it's going to pulse and pull the enemy towards it a few times before finally exploding. But if you want that explosion to happen faster, all you need to do is cast it at the ground, the wall, really any surface. Once it connects, it does the full explosion. The damage on this spell is honestly terrifying. Even uncharged, I was hitting for 1,000, and when I did go for the fully charged version, sometimes I would just absolutely one-shot a Phantom. Rellana's Twin Moons is another fun one, a little slow to cast, but does amazing damage, and has a 3-part attack chain, which a lot of people panic roll and keep getting hit by. Honestly, I've one-shot Phantoms with that as well. Miriam's Vanishing has been really fun as well. I like to cast that and go either into the Gravitational Missile or the Rellana's Moon. It really does catch people off guard. Glintblade Trio is a good pressure tool. I like to cast that, then go in with Carrying Slicer into the Carrying Piercer roll catch combo. That way there's pressure constantly on the opponent. The DLC just added so many sorceries, so I'm definitely going to be trying them out over time, but those are a few of my favorites so far. As for the build, I'm running a Pure Intelligence build. I haven't invaded level 200 yet in the DLC, and I'm told you get a lot of DLC invasions, so I figured I may as well test it out with the Wizard. This is the talisman setup I usually run on my Pure Sorcery builds, both the Graven School and Graven Mass talisman. I like to use the Godfrey icon, especially since I'm going for the Gravitational Missile. This fully charged does ridiculous damage. And then I finish it off with the Radagon icon to increase my cast speed to max. That's really everything that I have to say about my Pure Sorcery build. I hope you guys enjoy the invasions. Well, hello there guys, how's it going? I see a Blasphemous Blade in this area. Kind of scary, I'm not going to lie to you. Definitely scary, and a Moonveil. Always scary. Hey there. The wizard in the back took that. Hey, I'll take that crit, thank you. Amazing. Alright, Mr. Moonveil. Do your worst, wizard. Oops. I'm trying to think, how can I bait him into something funny? Yeah, hit me with the Moonveil, definitely. Hey, a blue summoned. Whoa, let's trade. Okay, you shouldn't have traded that much. Can I just say that was not a good idea. R1 spamming. Wait, you took the place of the Phantom. You're identical to him, by the way. I kind of want to use Endure into the moons here. I think it'd be really funny on the blue. Into the moon! I love it so much. It's actually so good. Where are you going? It's not over yet, Hosty. Why did you jump there, by the way? Now you're stuck? Question? No. Wait, another blue. Wait. Another Blasphemous Blade? Guys, come on now. There's more fun to be had here than Blasphemous Blade, okay? Charge into this. Slicer. He's gonna do another R1. As is tradition. I don't know what the odds of that are. Hey man, I didn't even know you were here. You're hiding in that bush. Sneaky. Alright. Pebble. Pebble. I want to hit you with the moon though. So bad. I need to bait him into the moon. What? Another person? Oh, you brought your friend back already? I didn't even see the summon sign logo. Interesting. Hey there, wizard. How's it going? He didn't go for it, unfortunate. We're gonna fire this at you. Well, that's gonna hurt for you pretty bad. Yeah, sorry. Wizard down again. Braddock. I want to make that explode. There we go. Alright, here's my plan. I want a Miriam Vanishing towards you and then moon. No, he didn't. He did attack into it. Let's go.
Unusual.
Oh, but he wasn't close enough. Oh, that last one, though. Really caught him off guard. 100% caught him off guard.
Never safe.
Well, I'm just going to spawn in here. Hello, Rivers of Enjoyer. Hello there. This is for you. There you go. Here's another. Wait, there's more. Fear it. Hello, the old reliable combo. Man, wizards can be their own support. I can just have spells going that just, you know... Whoa, no! Support me is what I was going to say, though. Hey, guys. Wait, elevator? Elevator? Hey there. Into Renala Moons. Let's go. Wait, no, Chris. Chris survived. I've kind of learned how to dodge that now. Let's stay full health, though. Let's go, Ramoons again, round 2. I was hoping that it would like clip through the side there. It did not. But this, for you guys. Just gonna pee here. Got hit by the gravity spell still. Haha, this is for you. I love it so much, it's so good. Right in the middle here. Nice, Chris. Good job. No! Never dodged it left, but it seems to work. Yeah, it definitely works. Take the swift into the big. Backstab? Yeah, I shouldn't have went for the backstab. It's the camera, like, not being able to track well when he does that for me. I don't know exactly where he is. Wait! You dare? Alright, your big thing versus mine. Alright, let's go. Mine won. Battle of the anime. Rolana's moon's on top, though. Oh, well, hello there, guys. Gelmir Hero's grave, is it? Hello. Hi, wizards. I'm one of your kind. Well, that'll happen if you don't pay attention to me. Sorry to say. I'm a wizard. Excuse me. Yes, come this way. No, don't run. Don't run. Come back. It's fine. Everything's fine. You're having a great time. Just wizard things, you know. Right into that. I don't blame you. I'm not a wizard enjoyer myself. Where's the host? Hey host, how's it going? I'm gonna do this into maybe this. Yeah, that wasn't fun for you. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. Gravitational missile is very strong. Also hilarious though. Wait, the Haligtree could actually be such a great place to invade with this spell. They're above, but I wonder, could I just aim this well enough to go up there? I can apparently. Pretty cool. Where did you go? Guys, how's it going? We're in a pretty rough spot, honestly. Well that is odd. It looks like a flying is so good. I'm gonna do this. Let's do that. No, we're wrong. Maybe Dragon Breath. Not the end of the world. I think he's behind me. Now that you're not in an awkward spot, what do we want to do? I'm thinking this will be fun. Yeah, look how big the AoE is, actually. It has such good range for what it is. Also, amongst that fight, did I see a blue was summoned? I did see a blue was summoned. Hi, blue. How's it going? How are you? I see you're good. You're good. Oh. Well, we just trade the wizard. No big deal. Now he's got a moon veil. What do we want to do? What if I were to Miriam vanish into moon? Unfortunate. I do love that. That's a cool little mix-up. Just, whoop. Well, I fell off a cliff there, but you know. Ooh, Bellarat, nice. This area can be pretty good for casting, I feel like. Lots of angles I can use. Oh, and I can actually surprise them from the rooftop. No way. I wonder if I could surprise them with the moon from up here. No. Hi guys, how's it going? Why are you ignoring me? Bonk. Thorns, huh? That's scary. Thorns is terrifying. Never an easy time with thorns nearby. Or that. Nice. What? Hey there. Thorns can't get me here, my friend. Miriam's vanishing is pretty funny. We heal that. Take that, bookmaker. So funny. Thought I was done, I'm not done. Oh, they have those Death Knight twin axes. They're really geared up to chase you down in a gank here. So I'm just gonna use the America's Blessing. We dodge that. Escape. Alright, seems good to heal here. Oh, hello, Co-Invader. How are you? Watch out, man. They actually have a lot of AoEs, be careful. Or that may be the invaders. Alright, I'm good, teammate. I'm here for you. Just watch out for the missile. Yeah, that one Phantom must be quite high level. I know we're at 200, but he's doing like everything. He's got it all. And there goes my teammate. Unfortunate. Oh, teabagging him, are you? Well, I've got something for you then. Follow me. Yes, definitely the faithful wizard. Always a good time. How would you guys like twin moves? Well, you know, I forgot to get Swift Slash. But if I cast it around the corner here, if it hits the wall, it might be good. One. Oh, he jumped away. He got by the second one, though. Oh, the third one! Nothing more satisfying than that. That was hilarious. Amazing. The moons are actually clutch. Hey, turn off the tongue. Do it, coward. Do it. Now I'm gonna whittle you down. What are you looking for here? Bonk. Bonk. Where's that third heal, man? Do the third heal. I dare you. Hua, hua, hua. Getting roll caught the hell by that, honestly. I thought your buddy, you don't know how to fight. It's incredible. And I seen you teabag that poor invader, so this is for you guys. There you go. Oh, into the quit out. Oh, he couldn't handle it when it was done to him. Comical. This stair set looks familiar. Hi guys, how's it going? Explosion! Explosion! And one final explosion! Oh man, I'm evil for that, but I'm a wizard, so I have to roleplay. The specimen storehouse. Hello there guys, how's it going? if I were to enter with this and then do this? Not that bad, not that bad. Thought I'd try it out. Hey, Hosty, how's it going? I'll take that trade gladly. Yo, next. Thomas, goodbye. I'll be on my way. Delete. Oh, this is gonna be a fun invasion, isn't it? This catacomb in general is so chaotic. Can I get up on this one to go up a level at all? Yeah, but it's kind of a dead end, right? So I'm gonna warp and hope I get kind of closer. Maybe somewhere over there would be good. This is actually nice. Hello there. How's it going? Physic at the ready. I see not the pest threads. You're not allowed to do that. Hey guys. We're having a castle sound, I see. I have long range things as well. Whee! I think that's gonna go all the way to me. Alright, we have a cast off, guys. Let's go. Well, you're not supposed to get hit by the first thing I do, just saying. I'm going up. Can you grab me out of that? Nope, nope, you can't. The counter to the Sword of Damnation. It looked like he did grab me though, right? But I fell. And he was still stuck in the grab animation, I think. That's funny. Shunning ground? Oh, for the Drake Warrior. I expect dragon breath in my future. With that being said, these tunnels are going to be very strong as a wizard, I think. Hi guys, how's it going? Explosion! Oh no, that was the host. Where'd the phantom go that I was chasing? Oh, guys, why'd you go so far ahead of him? No. Just one shot. This thing's scary. The death-touched catacombs. Well, from what I remember, this is a pretty small catacomb. Hello there. How's it going? How many of you are in here? And there's a blasphemous blade, huh? I love it. Into this. The old classic. Never bad, never bad. Hey, look, blasphemous blade. Everyone's favorite. Wait, what? That was the host? Completely my bad. Dragon's Pit? You know what? I kind of enjoy this area. Oh my god, I've invaded Elmo. Oh no? I don't want to invade Elmo. I haven't really tried this yet. How strong are these pots? Hey there. Let me pull you in, guys. Can you have two of these going at the same time, I wonder? Or does it, like, stop? I couldn't even see, to be honest. This is for you. Twin Moon! Even if you knock me down, they're coming out. I honestly love Rolanda's moons. They're so good. Oh my god, wait. Spartacus? Crumbling Faramazula? Someone's spawning over here. This is gonna be really good if I can make it work. Hi guys, how's it going? Spartacus, this is for you. It has the length. Wait, that's the host though. I don't want to kill the host. Is that a wizard? It is. It is a form of wizard. I have an idea here. I'm gonna go over here. Hi there. We have another one. It's a good wake up in itself. That's amazing. Hi there. Oh, lightning, huh? I'm prepared for lightning. That almost blended together. Could have been good for them. Oh wait, why did I take that away? Now we're gonna do this. Perfect. Hey, dual greatswords can be scary. Maybe we'll go moon here. How do the magic pots do? They have good travel time. They do pretty well. Pretty well is the answer. Oh, I don't like that. The lightning is tough to commit to anything because he can kind of just cast it whenever he wants. Otherwise, it'll get really dangerous. Moon! I love that he tried to jump into it. Full commitment. Didn't quite work though. Slice her into this. Oh, that's gonna hurt Spartacus. What? What about jump attack? I wonder if that would still roll catch as well. Nice. Oh, that was almost a blendering. Full commitment there. Dodge. Re-heal that. Alright, we're gonna go fully charge the gravitational missile, but I need to outspace them. Perfect. Nice. Wait, Spartacus died. How? I aimed it at you. I don't understand. I guess the AoE is pretty huge. Alright, those are all the battles that I have for you guys for today with my pure wizard. I hope everybody enjoyed the invasions. Once again, there's my stats on the right, the armor that I wore, the talismans that I used throughout the invasions, and the two different staffs that I swapped between, really just the Carrion Regal and the Loose Sandsclin Stone. Being a wizard definitely got buffed from the DLC though, because Gravitational Missile is just so strong, honestly. The charged version works so well. The uncharged is a great get off me, still does amazing burst damage. And of course the Rolana's Twin Moons, another good burst damage spell. A lot of people tried to attack into this, honestly. I was pretty surprised. As always, if you guys have any recommendations on what you'd like to see next on the channel, feel free to comment it below. As well, feel free to recommend spells and sorcery builds as well. I'm going to start dabbling in the magic. Until the next video, though, this is goodbye. I will see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye. Goodbye.
live service games are dying. Can you guys believe that? Who could have ever expected this?
So over a year ago, back in February of 2023, I released a video detailing how live services are dying by the dozen as the genre buckles from unsustainable oversaturation. And fast forward roughly a year and a half, and you want to know what's changed since? Nothing.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing. Companies are still in this gold rush to become the next big live service, to try to become the next Destiny 2. But a lot of those ideas are either uninspired or not competitive enough with what's currently the standard for that stuff to stand out. So guess what? There's been just another round of mass shutdown of live services, or live services that you can tell are going to shut down sooner or later. This discussion kind of cropped up again with the shutdown or the end of support for Exoprimal. This is a game that was released by
This
Capcom,
is something people are worried about happening to New World.
and it was announced on July 5th, 2024, that all planned Exoprimal seasonal content has been finished. Exoprimal, for those who don't know, is this dinosaur shooter game
like
that can
Ark.
be best described as like a mix between Anthem and Dino Crisis, I guess, except instead of just making Dino Crisis, they made Exoprimal. And it had some neat things going for it, but ultimately it wasn't a compelling enough title for it to be able to stand out. And so the end of support came, and various news outlets sort of began talking about how this should be a lesson to live service developers, or how this is just another casualty in this trend, and what is gaming's worst trend is kind of the opinion that's out there of trying to push live services out there.
Here's what the real problem is with this, is that usually whenever a live service game ends, the experience that a player has interfacing with a game drastically changes. So, for example, whenever you were playing like WoW, if you can't log on to the server, you can't do a lot of things in the game. Like, you just can't play the game. So you need it to be live service. Also, a lot of live service games exist and they monetize through cosmetics. And people buy cosmetics because they can show them off. And if you can't play with other people and there's nobody else around, those cosmetics don't matter as much. That's why people care about buying an expensive car or like anything else. They want to go somewhere that there's other people so they can show it off. Yeah, who are you going to impress? Exactly.
Of having a live service there to recurrently monetize, rather than have a genuinely inspired idea that makes sense for the live service genre where it can shine as a live service. And so I want to detail the next round of games where it's highly likely to already determine that they just don't have a future, and it's going to be a big waste of time and money, and the ones who are going to suffer.
Well, eventually you just got to take the old dog back behind the barn and got to put her down. And that's just the way it is.
Are the developers who just were doing
you
what
gotta
the captain
do
told
it.
them, only to be led astray. Let's start by looking at multiverses. Now, what's interesting about this game is that, I mean, look, you can see right here from the player numbers that it's trending downwards and it's slowly starting to die off. What's interesting about this particular game is that it would be its second death. You may recall that this game launched all the way back in summer of 2022. It peaked to great numbers, but that fell off real hard, and eventually people just stopped playing it. And if you look at the graph of this latest release, it's the same trend of like it peaked pretty high for like a day or two, for a couple days, and now it's the rate.
People don't need another Smash Brothers. They already have Smash Brothers, and they grew up playing. You're not going to compete against Smash Brothers. Just what were you thinking? We need a better one? Apparently not.
At which the player base is diminishing is rather alarming for a live service, one that's free to play at that, and that requires a consistent stream of players to be engaged and in turn spend money on this game for this to be viable. It looks like it's headed down the same path as the first time around, when it basically died off unceremoniously. I don't suspect multiverses, unless they make some radical changes and radical additions, will really last all that long, if I'm being honest with you. And what really didn't help matters for
It's not going to. Like, again, it's just that a lot of these new fighting games that are coming out are just mediocre. They're worse versions of existing games. So why are you going to have somebody go and play this game and develop a lot of time and skill in this game when it's not popular?
Versus is that its final release somehow was less feature complete than the beta and had issues that the beta didn't have. And so it just released in a poor state that didn't feel like a huge enough step up from the beta for it to be something that revitalized the player base's belief in multiverse's capability to kind of compete against your Super Smash Brothers or your, Brawlhalla's even. Then let's talk about Skull and Bones. Back in February of 2024, it was reported that this game from Ubisoft, the so-called quadruple A game, had less than 1 million players.
Every time I think of this game, I think of the video that we watched about the guy talking about how the water worked. It's like, bro, ain't nobody give a fuck about the water. No, nobody. What are you doing, man?
Total, including free trial players as of this day, meaning that a lot of people kind of try the game out and decided, yeah, I'm not gonna buy this. And even including those free trial players, the number of players engaging with this game was minuscule enough that I don't suspect
well,
that
it's because I watched a couple of guys playing the game, and it looked even shittier than the trailers. It was like a guy that was shooting, it was like shooting a tower over and over with like this super generic health bar over it, and it was going down like... And I'm like, are you kidding me? Is this really happening? It's insane. Like, I was going to play the game, and I was like, this is so horrible. I can't even play this.
This is a game that is going to have long legs unless Ubisoft somehow manages to pull off like a For Honor or a Rainbow Six Siege level comeback, which I guess Ubisoft has done before, but, that is the exception, not the rule.
It
Redfall
certainly is.
fell, no pun intended, not too long ago when it was
Redfall was so bad that it killed an entire studio.
announced on May 30th, 2024 that Arcane Austin would be bidding farewell to Redfall with the final update. This was after Xbox decided to shut down Arcane Austin alongside with Tango Gameworks and other studios. The final update did
Xbox made the right call. You release a piece of shit like this, I mean, come on.
include
Gotta take her out to the back of the barn. You just gotta do it. Not with Tango? How do you know what their balance sheet is? I bet they were probably losing Xbox money. Do you think Xbox really cut away a profitable partner?
the offline mode that this game desperately needed for it to be preserved, so kudos there. But that aside, like, the game was just unceremonious all throughout. People didn't really like the announcement.
This is 3433, isn't? 343. One of the best things that Microsoft could do for Halo is to just completely take the IP away from them. They've had multiple games to develop Halo. They failed every single case. They should have the IP taken away from them and be completely fired. It's not even a question. Like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let whoever made Doom, have them make Halo.
Marketing didn't particularly entice players, and then the final game, the reviews and the feedback surrounding it didn't indicate that this was going to be a successful live service, and Redfall fell pretty hard. And then, of course, the shutdown of Arcane Austin was the kind of final nail
That's
in
what
the
you get.
coffin. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is now free to claim for Prime Day when a
They're
live
giving it
service
away
is so
for
desperate
free?
that they are already making free offers.
Oh my
And,
God.
this is months after its launch. One that's not free to play, mind you. This is a premium priced live service where
Of
you do have an
course.
initial price tag you have to pay to access it. That's already a bad sign, combined with the fact that if you look at its player base and look at how many people are engaging with the game right now, you'll find low triple-digit players over the course of 24 hours. This right here is as good as dead, and there have been a couple
300 people playing the game. Like, yeah, this game is done, man. It's finished. Because, like, this is a AAA game. Like, I mean, there are a lot of games that have 300 people playing it, and they're small in scope games that are not a big deal, and so it's not a big deal to maintain them. But like dude, it's like if you build like, let's say a restaurant, and the restaurant can seat 5 people and you have 4 people show up, that's pretty good, right? But if you build a restaurant that can seat 300 people and you have 10 people show up, even though it's more than the 4, that's still really bad. Still really bad. Not going to be a restaurant for long.
Updates that have rolled out, but that stuff has not been enough to really bolster player numbers because the updates just don't feel all that substantial. They had one chance with the Season 1 and Joker DLC to show that their upcoming content would be thrilling and exciting, but Season 1 and Joker DLC, that did not go down well at all.
It would have never gone well because the game looks like trash and it's bad. That's the reason why people aren't playing it. Just looks like shit.
That the developers are only barely able to keep up with the game's live
Give us another
service
Batman
requirements.
game. Yeah,
they're barely
people.
able to.
I've said this before with Suicide. People don't like Suicide Squad. They like Harley Quinn, and they don't like Harley Quinn. They like Margot Robbie playing Harley Quinn. That's what people like. Suicide Squad's stupid. Who cares about that?
Make content, and when they do, it's a lot of rehash stuff because they just haven't built a solid foundations to make this a viable long-term game. Next up, let's take a look at Foam Stars from Square Enix, which, I mean, it took a lot of inspiration from Splatoon. And
I remember
it's
seeing
the
this.
fact that they were trying to replicate something and, you know, give it a twist of their own, but it ultimately just didn't stand out enough. And then its quality, while it wasn't a bad game by any means, it just wasn't outstanding. It didn't have the personality that Splatoon did.
Yeah.
It just wasn't as refined as Splatoon was. Ultimately, the player base just dipped tremendously throughout the course of its lifespan, to the point where by
95%.
April of 2024, Foam Stars lost nearly 95% of its player base. And while they haven't announced like a shutdown of the game or an end of service or an end of support, I do suspect that that announcement will be coming pretty soon, and that the vast majority of people won't be surprised to hear this. And I think a lot of people will be like, huh? Foam Stars, what even is that? I don't think...
I didn't even know it came out. And now that it did come out, excuse me, nothing in my life will change. It looked like those games, it was like a lot of PlayStation games that are like knockoffs of Nintendo games feel so soulless and sad to me. It's funny.
A lot of people really have heard of this game, and if they have, they've long forgotten about it and moved on to all the other live services that are out there that are huge time sinks. Companies have the expectation that people just have unlimited time to spend on all of these live services and unlimited money for that matter. But there are only so many people on this planet, and of those people, only so much time can be spent on 1 or 2 games that require you to treat them as full-time jobs.
That's the way I feel right now with Zenless Zone Zero. Like, if Once Human and First Descendant weren't released, I probably would have finished all the content in Zenless Zone Zero. But the reason why I haven't done it is because I just simply have something better to do. And I think that's what's going to happen, is like these live service games are just cannibalizing each other. WoW is the same way. Yeah, like if there was no other game to play, I'd play WoW, but there are, and so I don't really want to play them. That's it.
Stay fully sort of updated and to keep up with all the rewards and all the timed FOMO content that they put out there. Rocket Arena is next. This game did last a couple years at least. It was released on July 14th, 2020, but it was recently announced that the game would shut down. Rocket Arena was sunset on March 21st, 2024.
Sunset is whenever they take it out behind the barn, by the way.
Honestly, this is one game that it was from EA.
This hurts me
and
more
it's
than
one
it
that I
hurts
just
you.
haven't looked too much into. I think I remember seeing like a trailer for it back in the day, but it just didn't interest me enough to really check it out. But alas, it's a game that didn't have long enough legs. Moving on, we have this July 11th, 2024 announcement that Tencent is shutting down its free-to-play shooter Synced after just a year. Literally, exactly a year after its release is when this game will be shut down on September.
Bro, so you know they made that decision probably 2 months after the release, and they just had to sit there and deal with it for 10 more months. Yep.
8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. I don't know much about Synced, I'll be honest. If there was marketing for this game, I must have missed it.
Yeah.
This is one of those, like, who situations, but yeah, again, the market is so oversaturated that there are times where you will just not hear about certain games because there's so many to keep track of, or because the marketing team just failed to really spread word about these titles. As for
I think the main reason why you don't hear about games is because they're bad. I feel like there are very few circumstances where genuinely good games are out there and nobody knows about them. Like, it happens. Don't get me wrong, it does happen, but it's extremely rare.
for some of the more successful live services that have come out, every once in a while you do get a new live service that does manage to kind of market itself just right or hit just right, where a lot of people do check it out. Among them is The First Descendant, though if you look at its critical reception, I mean, already mixed at 53% on Steam from
Well,
almost...
it's a Nexon free-to-play game that has things that you can buy that make your character better. Like, of course it's fucking mixed. Yeah, duh.
60,000 reviews. That indicates that unless they do something to spruce the game up, it might be a pretty quick descent, akin to what we saw with like Multiverses. And it doesn't help that the scores surrounding The First Ascent are pretty not great, sitting at a 57% from 13 critic reviews, and the user scores at a 4.9 on Metacritic.
I think that people are just rating the game bad. I don't think that the user scores are accurate. I think the game is a 7. I think it's a little bit above mediocre, but it's not like an amazing game either. It's just kind of like a good thing to do. That I don't think 4.9 is fair, but it's not a 10 either. I think it's a 7.
With the mixed score on Steam from tens of thousands of people. But currently, if you look at player numbers, the all-time peak, 264,860 players. That's like a dream launch scenario for a live service. And so far, in what little time this game has been out, the people who play this game are consistently coming back. But I've heard that this game just is kind of bland and lackluster in certain areas, and that it's grindy in ways that are not necessarily fun. Not to mention that when it comes to, I guess, its primary competition, it is kind of trying to be its own version of Warframe to a degree, and Warframe is already so well established, and that is a game whose updates have proven to be so substantial that every time a major new update comes out, it like...
In a live service game, monetization should factor into the score. Yeah, but it's going to be different for everybody, right? And like, so for me, I think monetization, the point where I believe monetization is bad is when monetization is randomized. So because there's no randomized monetization in The First Descendant, I don't consider it bad. I don't have a problem with the prices. I have a problem with the pricing. Like the way that, or sorry, that with the offerings. That's your opinion? Yeah, this is my opinion. That's why I said I think it's a 7. I didn't say it is a 7. Like, for somebody, it's probably a 1, and for somebody else, it's 10. Of course, of course, it's my opinion. Are you fucking stupid? What do you think? What do you think is happening here?
Transforms the game to compete against that. The First Ascendant, its cadence of high-quality new content releases will have to be, you know, competitive with that. So unless it does that, I can see these numbers drop off fairly quickly over the course of the next few weeks. But this is one of those, like, we'll see, we'll have to wait and see scenarios. And then we have Destiny 2.
You'll know whether The First Descendant is going to be a good game in the next 3 months. Because you're going to, like, they've already made a lot of patches for the game that seem like they're responding to community feedback. So we're going to have to wait and see how that response is going to evolve.
Which is in many ways the mother of live service.
Yeah, they're adding a lot of new stuff.
Destiny IP, I think, has been out the longest as far as that particular genre goes, and it's what inspired a lot of businesses to try to essentially replicate its success. And with the final shape having been so well received,
like they're doing really well.
The player numbers peaked at almost the all-time.
I'm very strongly considering trying this game out at some point. Like, I might just wait until they make a new, like, reset for the game, because there's probably so much stuff in the game now, it's overwhelming. But, like, if they made a Destiny 3, I would be there.
Peak that it was at previously in the last month, and in recent months, I mean, and recent days, we're seeing players in the tens to hundreds of thousands. So this is a game that's doing well, and who went off with a bang thanks to a great final DLC. Zenless Zone Zero, this is from MiHoYo, and At this point, with the success of Genshin and then Honkai Star Rail, MiHoYo is just too big to fail now. Like any new game output, I think they'll just people will be on board for this particular fan base. So Zenless Zone Zero managed to prove 50 million downloads worldwide in a very short amount of time, and that does not surprise me one bit. So at this point is established enough as a company and brand that their live services, new ones, will succeed. Helldivers 2 was kind of, I think, a surprise hit.
I think Zenless Zone Zero is doing very well. I don't even know if it's doing very well. Like, I feel like it's just tremendously inferior to the other games that are like it. I do. I think it's just inferior.
When, the numbers peaked to almost over 450,000 players, and on PlayStation 5, we don't know what those numbers look like. This was a massive success, but we are seeing a decline of players. We're seeing players move on. Ultimately,
boring gameplay loop with no progression. Big surprise. It was fun for a while, but then it fell off. Anybody could have predicted this.
While Helldivers
yeah,
can
anybody.
be fun for some time, its cadence of releases of content updates are too small, and they need like an expansion-sized update, I think, to really rekindle the fire of this player base. There's only so much you can do in terms of variety of activities in this game before people realize they're kind of starting.
I think also the game had a lot of cultural relevance, and you can't. You need that's on cooldown right now. Like, they can't release another update and have people like go immediately back to being as excited about it as they were. Now, in a year or so, I think that could happen, but it will take some time.
To do the same thing over and over again, and there's just not enough rewards and things to look forward to, to grind for. And then one last game I want to look at is X Defiant from Ubisoft, which is essentially their take on a Call of Duty-like experience. And this is a game that has gone on to do pretty well for itself, unlike, say, Skull and Bones. It's like the complete opposite.
Yeah.
X Defiant has been sort of breaking milestones every so often, every few weeks, and most recently it was stated by Yves Guillemot that X Defiant has attracted 11 million players. How many of those are sort of continuously coming back to play X Defiant in terms of concurrent player numbers? What kind of numbers we're seeing there, and how many people engage with this game at the same time. We don't know those stats, but 11 million players checking a game out is substantial, and I'll be curious to see whether these results...
I just feel like there's like a cap on the amount of successful live service games that can exist. Like, there's just simply not a big... Like, you think about a forest. There are only so many huge trees that can exist in a forest. You can't just keep putting huge trees in the forest over and over and over. Eventually, you're going to reach a cap. And I think that's what's happened, is that cap has been reached, and now people are just trying to churn the people that are inside of that to play their game instead. We've been capped. Yeah, I know I'm capped out on games. I am. I always have something to play.
Will continue, or whether this will flatline and fall off. But when it comes to like Ubisoft branded shooters, Rainbow Six Siege went to do pretty well. X Defiant has a strong start, and if Ubisoft does what they did with the likes of Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor, it could very well thrive. So, not to say that it's completely unviable to enter the live service market, but you either have to chase a trend so well and have to market a game so well that it attracts enough attention, and then the content itself, the quality is good enough that it retains that attention and it spreads word of mouth, or you have to deliver something really inspired, something that feels kind of fresh and something that everyone will want to talk about and play with other friends with. I think Helldivers 2, that initial wave of hype.
Well, you can't replicate that because the novelty of the game wore off. Everybody already knows what Helldivers is now. So there's nothing like new that you can do. A lot of these games release updates at different dates so they can thrive alongside each other. No, that's not true, because like I think that a lot of people want to have a game like WoW. They want to have that game that they come home from work and they play that game and they log on and they always do that one thing. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, and I don't think people want to like shift between a bunch of different games over and over and over. I don't think so. Yeah, a forever game. I think a lot of people are looking for like a forever game. And that's why like there's a focus on live service, is that games want to be that forever game. That's why, for example, Fortnite is so successful.
That did sustain itself for some time. You know, a lot of people just felt
Genshin,
like Helldivers 2
OSRS.
really felt like just
Great
something
example.
kind of different. Like, yes, it's a shooter, but the whole Starship Troopers vibe combined with all the shenanigans that can ensue during a play session, and just the identity that it had that was very unique to itself and very self-aware, and just the kind of fun chaos that could plague any session for better and for worse. All that made Helldivers 2 just feel like the game that was talked about during the time that sort of peaked in terms of its hype and reception. Again, that's fallen off since, because I do think the developers didn't expect the level of success that it attained, so they weren't prepared for the kind of content cadence that this kind of success would require. So I think they're now just kind of building the foundation for that. But that is an example of a game that, you know, it was like a bit of an underdog, but people found it. They talked.
I think if the gameplay, like, you've got to keep in mind, a lot of these games that fall off are inferior versions of existing games. And this is something a lot of people need to realize. These games, it's not like these games are some kind of like great, amazing thing that just didn't get discovered. A lot of them have mediocre gameplay, you know, maybe slightly above average graphics and annoying systems. Like, this is just not very good. They're not that great of games. They're not worth investing time every single day into playing.
About it, word of mouth spread, and it wasn't just your typical like thing copying something else. The thing that was just kind of going for a generic version of something that already exists, that's just better than the new product that they're trying to make, which is the fear surrounding Concord, that while this is not a bad game based on impressions surrounding its beta,
it's a bad game, and it would be, if it was a good game, more people would have played it. If people aren't playing the game, there's a reason for it. Having to pay for beta access, no thanks. Nobody complained about that with Baldur's Gate 3 whenever they had early access. There are a lot of games. Nobody complained about that with Hogwarts Legacy to play it early. Or Diablo. No. No, this is what they did. Oh, you're right, they did do it. But that did not affect the player count. The player count still went fucking crazy because people would play the game or see the game, and they would buy just to play the beta. Nobody complained about that with Baldur's Gate 3. All huge IPs, though? I don't think that matters. I don't think a big IP is going to make a big difference. If the game is good, people will log on and they will play it regardless. Look at Helldivers 2.
A lot of people do feel like maybe it's, this is a genre of live service that's a little too late. The Washington Post said,
and also you're going to see a lot of people. You're going to see a lot of people talking around why Concord isn't popular. One of the big reasons why Concord isn't popular is because the game looks like it was created from a focus group of DEI consultancy companies. That's also another reason. They literally have like the character's pronouns in the top corner. It's fucking weird. So all of these companies and these different newspapers are going to be talking about this. Oh, I don't know why people don't want to play it. Oh, who knows? It could be anything. That's the reason why. You're going to see a lot of people talking around why. That's not the reason, but it's a very big reason. Because you see that, you look at the character design, and people are just like, yeah, I'm not interested in this.
Concord is Sony's expertly crafted big bet. It's just a few years late, and the reception surrounding this game has generally been mixed. Nobody's saying it's abysmal or anything, but nobody's saying that it's a standout either. And if something is not a standout from a live service genre perspective, and it doesn't capture an audience immediately from day one and then keep that audience and have that audience grow, then it's doomed to fail. It's doomed to shut down. It's doomed to peter out unceremoniously. And yet, despite all this, we're seeing companies like PlayStation going kind of crazy. At one point, they were working on 12 live service games that they wanted to ship over the years. Eventually, PlayStation, realizing that this level of live service saturation from a single company is practically suicidal, eventually decided to cut that number in half. At least in terms of...
it's too fucking many, man.
of what's releasing within a certain time frame. Like those other 6 are still being planned for release down the line, but they're kind of slowing down their roll and focusing more on a fewer quantity of games instead of trying to shotgun their way through 12 freaking live services, which is just an insane amount of live services from any one company, even from different companies. 12 live services over the span of a couple of years is still a lot, but Sony by itself trying to release 12 live services, freaking actually nuts.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of people competing for a market that they think is very big, but it's actually not as big as they think it is. And like, I think that, for example, games will cannibalize each other that aren't related to each other at all, just simply because a new game comes out with new content.
A way that's not inspired, in a way that just feels really, really dumb. Now, we did see on December of 2023 that they did shut down The Last of Us Online. The quality just wasn't there, and Naughty Dog just decided that they're better off being focused on what they do best, which is single-player, campaign-driven, story-heavy experiences. Because, I mean, have we not learned the lesson at this point of what happens when you take a company, a studio that is specialized, that are really good at making single-player campaign experiences? When you take your BioWares, when you take your Crystal Dynamics, when you take your Arcane Austins and throw them into the live service looter genre and expect them to make something that's as competitive and that can match the stuff that comes from companies who've had live service experience for many, many years and have been able to update that.
There's no reason why people should have
Really good at making single-player campaigns. Take your Crystal Dynamics, when you take your Arcane Austins and throw them into the live service looter genre and expect them to make something that's as competitive and that can match the stuff that comes from companies who've had live service experience for many, many years and have been able to update that.
There's no reason why people should have been clipping through the 4 in Redfall. Like, it doesn't matter what your experience is before then. That was unacceptable and it was pathetic. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, yeah, sure, obviously the studio isn't specialized in that, but so many parts of the game just didn't even work.
Live service for many years and make them much more full and
Let's be real.
substantial. Like that's a doomed kind of project. That's a doomed kind of endeavor when you're dealing with studios that just aren't used to developing in that kind of environment. And so I think it was smart for Naughty Dog to decide to back off on this huge Last of Us Online live service experience.
I think it is too.
I wonder if Sony will be smart enough to not output 6 to 12 live services throughout the course of upcoming years. You know, by fiscal year ending in March 2026. So within the span of 2 years, they initially had the plan to release 12 live services. Even half that, even 6 live services in the span of 2 years is an insane number. And I mean, it feels like they're just throwing darts at the board and hoping that one of them will hit a bullseye in the dark. But I don't know if that kind of approach will yield results. I don't know if something like Concord will take off. I think that will be maybe the litmus test of whether this is something that will work for Sony. And if Concord doesn't end up doing well, I think Sony may back off further on those plans, realizing that this kind of oversaturation and this kind of rushing towards live services in vast quantities, instead of taking the time to consider what one big major endeavor they can pursue that makes sense for a live service and that is genuinely inspired, they can invest in. This just feels like, again, like a gold rush race.
They're just trying to do whatever's popular. That's all there is to it. They're not even doing it. They're not in it for the love of the game. They're just trying to capitalize on it and get their flag there first so they can be the next Fortnite. I feel like what happened is as soon as Fortnite popped off, every other fucking game wanted to be like Fortnite. So they keep trying to do the exact same thing. That's what's going on.
Considered and something that is coming from an artistic and creative perspective. But this is kind of the current state of live services right now, ladies and gentlemen. A handful still can slip through and take off and whatever. But even then, the question of can that maintain itself and, can that not suffer the massive declines that a lot of these tend to suffer? That remains to be seen. And the race towards infusing the market with more live services is far from over. And it's one that's going to result in a lot of failed projects for just no good reason, from a lack of foresight, from just sheer short-sightedness. The market getting more and more saturated with these kinds of games. It's going to be harder and harder for any one live service to stand out and succeed. But I'll be curious to see where some of these live services end up. You know,
in the garbage. That's what they're going to be. I think that this whole idea of these, like, oh, this game was good, but it never really caught on. My opinion is that it didn't catch on because it wasn't good. You might think it's good, but the complaints that people had, I think they were pretty fucking valid.
A year or two or a couple of years from now.
So I didn't talk about Tower Fantasy.
Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the recent cadence of release of live services, and whether you think that this is viable and whether there's certain live services that are doing it right.
Yeah.
And what you think about just all the shutdowns versus some of the ones that do manage to take off and succeed here and there. So let me know in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.
I think he's right pretty much about all this stuff. I do. I think honestly what's happened is that there have been so many games into space right now that are live service. So, like, here's an example. There's the video. Give it a like. I really agree with pretty much all of this. There, a lot of times, just like, I feel like games don't really need to be live service, but they're made live service on purpose. And I think that's really what the problem is. So if you look at, for example, let's look at where are the most popular games. Live service, kind of a live service, not just the greatest game ever made. Live service, I don't know about this game. live service, live service, live service, live service. I think they do updates for this, but I'm not really sure. Live service, live service. All of these games basically are live service. Isn't that interesting? That's why these people are going after it. It's because if you can capitalize on these numbers, you can make a ridiculous amount of money. That's the reason why they're doing it. Is they want to be one of these games, but what they do is they just try to make their own version of it. Like Once Human, for example, like this game it's quite popular. People do seem to like this. This is actually pretty good. Now, you look at other games, it's not as much, right? Like you see, let me see, like you scroll down, like let's look all the way down to like right here. Where's some more live service games? Many of these games down here are all games that are probably, the ones that are not, single player. I'm not talking about that. These are all games that are under threat of shutdown. Check Once Human Steam numbers. Yeah, sure. I'll look at that right now. Once Human. Let's see here. Game charts. Oh my God. That is fucking incredible. That's amazing. What the fuck? Wow. Show Concord? Okay, let's show Concord.
Let's take it out to the back of the barn, bro. We gotta put her down. You know what really makes me happy about this? Is that this game is so shitty that they're gonna have to pay people to play it. And I might be one of them. So, the thing is for me, you guys gotta keep in mind that I have the mindset of it doesn't matter what happens, I figure out the way to kind of like, get in there and make money or, take advantage of it one way or another, right? So it's like if the game does really well, then I farm about how the game does really well. If the game is really bad, then I farm about the game being really bad. If the game is like mediocre, then I take a sponsor for the game and then I make a video 2 weeks later about how the game's dead. Like there's literally no way that I can lose. And I've engineered it to, like, this is like whenever I say that we consume games, like we chew them up and we shit them out. And it doesn't matter what it is, it happens all the same.
everyone. Today we've got a frankly ridiculous situation, right? Kerbal Space Program 2 right now is on sale for 20% off as part of the Steam Summer Sale. Thing is though, there isn't a developer for the game. Yeah, Take-Two are literally selling this game currently in early access, even though they just closed down the development studio. They have given people no further plan for development. They've actually just had a wall of silence around this entire thing. Straight up, they have not actually admitted the closure of the studio. The whole thing is weird. It's a mess. New players are being charged $39.99 for an early access game that does not have a development team. That's wild. So today, I'll walk you through this absurd situation and how one of the largest companies in the gaming industry seems to just be fine doing this. And of course, not only this, also the entire development process, story, and launch of Kerbal Space Program 2, because that was also awful, and turns out we're going to learn a little bit more about that today. So to me, this is just treating customers with contempt, especially when you think about the people who have not been told about what's going on, who they want to spend $40 on the game. People deserve to know about it then. 1 week ago, Intercept Games was closed down. Now, we know this because of WARN, which stands for Worker Adjustment and Retraining, something like that. Basically, right, if there are going to be layoffs, at least seemingly within Seattle, then there is going to be a WARN post about that. Those actually go up requiring 60 days of notice to staff. So it's a policy that exists to help staff not be completely rug pulled by their companies, so that if they are going to lose their job, at least they can try to line something up. So because of that, we basically know what location and what company the job cuts are from. Now, it's not granular, it's still listed as Take-Two, but it is Take-Two, 70 jobs, permanent closure. The next way that we know, of course, is just staff confirming all of this on LinkedIn, right? Because the studio was completely shut down at the start of July, and that means that the whole process seems to have taken a week. So that's the weird situation that we're in. The developer for KSP2 has officially been closed, staff are not working the game anymore, and Take-Two, who owned their publisher, Private Division, basically a sub-label of Take-Two, so they've not actually admitted that. It's really strange. They have been adamant that somebody will be working in Kerbal Space Program 2. They did an interview with Game Developer where they basically said that Private Division, as a publisher, would provide updates for the game. Thing is, they didn't really say how. They didn't even say, like, what category of solution will there be for this problem? And funnily enough, they managed to say all of that without actually admitting that the game developer, Intercept, that they had been closed. So it is very strange. Now, even though Take-Two are saying Private Division will keep the game developed, somehow, you know, no plan, no admission. Even though they're saying that, we also know that Private Division themselves are facing layoffs, right? So they're facing layoffs, and also per IGN's reporting, they're in the midst of potential sale options. One for the Kerbal Space Program IP, because they own that, and the other one, just them as a publisher, right? The whole thing Private Division going. Which obviously does not bode well for active development in the short term. That means that if you bought this game, you're playing in early access, you probably should be concerned. Because so far it seems like the sort of decision-making that got us into this mess is the kind of decision-making that'll continue. IGN sources talked a little bit about essentially what things were like at Private Division. So I'm going to quote from their article. Sources say the label was often saddled with unreasonable sales targets and pressure to release games before they were ready, with Kerbal Space Program 2 being a notable recent example. Yes, again, that is stupid, that is self-defeating, but it also is something that continually happens in the industry. For a lot of the people who are making the biggest decisions, they are often concerned about quarterly results, yearly results, that kind of thing. They're not always going to be thinking about the 2-year, 5-year, or 10-year term. And to most of us, that's fairly insane. I mean, you'd probably say, well, if you're an investor, if you maybe have shares of a company, surely the whole point is you believe that that company is strong and a good place to put your money in, so if they do the right thing for the long term instead of the money quick now thing, I mean, surely that's good. Surely you should put your money in there. And there are plenty of cases where that kind of thing does actually work out. But a lot of the time, it's almost, to me, a bit like an opportunity cost thing. If your money is sitting in a certain company, and, you know, it might have a good 5-year plan, but then there might be another company that maybe is looking a little bit more bullish in the short term. So there is a sort of expected cost in being in the short term lower performing asset. I think that's some of the thought pattern that drives this stuff anyway, or at the very least that helps explain something that to the rest of us seems bloody stupid. Now, the live development of this game did see an update on the 11th of June. This was after staff had been informed of the layoffs, but it was before the studio closed. And it's kind of tragic because this patch was relatively small. It was fixing user experience and bug issues. Thing is, though, they promised this on April 25th as the precursor to the Colonies update. The Colonies update is the big thing that the majority of the game team was building. Of course, 4 days after that promise was made to the players, the warn notice was filed. So that is absolutely brutal. They communicated with their players that they were going to do an immediate patch and that they were building up to a larger content release. 4 days later, they find out they're all losing their jobs, essentially. That means that yes, right now there is no developer, but the publisher are not necessarily in a position to build a new team. If this was something where they could just do a press release and put everybody's fears to rest, they probably would have, so why have they not? I mean, they're trying to sell the intellectual property, and Take-Two are also trying to sell them. So this is absolutely an uphill battle, and of course it's made all the more rough by Steam Early Access. Ostensibly, when you buy the game, you are basically supporting the development. Now, those sales may be a little tricky. I mean, Kerbal Space Program, very strong IP, yes, lots of people play it. Problem is, though, it's absolutely been through the ringer. It is not in a good state. So if you're a developer, right, maybe developer, publisher, whatever, if you buy Kerbal Space Program 2 to go and finish the game, you're basically buying a game that the community is furious about in the hopes that somehow, if you throw more money into a situation that already wasn't going well, that it somehow would turn around and be good. Now, I do think there is a way to do that. If you basically say, we have acquired this, it's going to take us a little bit of time, but we have the will and we have the resources, we're going to do this right. That could actually work, but it would rely on them actually convincing people that the fundamentals have changed. So it still is a relatively risky sort of thing to go and buy Kerbal Space Program VIP. Now, of course, there's also the Colonies update. Who the hell knows what's going to go on there? Because if it was to be finished by another developer, well, that would still take time. It wouldn't be ideal. Number one, a design would be finished by people who didn't start it. And that means that there's going to be a whole bunch of onboarding time, not only to their tools, to their code base, but also basically understanding the design principles. When you're developing a game, especially a live one like that, you're always generating hypothesis and you're seeing how that shakes out. Those are important lessons. Thing is, though, they're sort of soft lessons. They're not necessarily a game feature. They're not necessarily a piece of code. They are a sort of intangible asset that is in the brains of the developers, the sort of thing that makes them do a polished experience that the players really, truly want. That is going to be the casualty here. Of course, when we go and look at Steam, we do see a big old wave of negativity, which is completely goddamn justified. And it's gotten so bad that content creators around Kerbal Space Program are basically looking at KSP2 and they're wondering what's even the point of doing coverage. Because basically, the core game is so unfinished. I mean, look, we've talked about City Skylines 2 here. It does very much appear that this is a worse situation than CS2. Now, another side of this is Steam Early Access. How can a game be on Steam Early Access when there seemingly isn't a developer behind it? That is a very strange thing, and I've got to imagine that it would go down differently in a case like this, where it's big IP, big game, sort of all, known stuff, or maybe a single developer that's basically just scarpered off. I've got to imagine that where the single dev would probably be booted off Steam because the rule's been broken, away you go, and then in a case like this, it's probably a little bit more tricky for Valve. So, in terms of some facts, nobody at any point has updated the store page with any, status for the game. The social media accounts have got no information on the development situation surrounding the game. So it's selling into early access. We factually know that the material circumstances of its early access development have changed and no formal update has been made there. Now, we do know that it's possible for sales to be suspended on Steam without removing access for existing players, so Steam could effectively do a delist to stop this game from being sold because, yes, Take-Two are selling a game that nobody is actually working on. Now, Steam's guidance here is that customers only purchase a game on early access if they're happy with the game at the time of purchase. That, of course, makes a lot of sense because basically the more liability Valve would have here, well, the more drama there could be, the more expensive that could get for Valve, so it does make sense to just throw that on the player. Thing is, though, there is also the requirement from developers to genuinely believe that they are going to finish the game. That is a requirement, and this is not some 5-person indie team who got way in over their heads. This is Take-Two Interactive throwing up a wall of silence and encouraging people to buy a game that nobody is working on. That, to me, does feel like something Valve should probably be talking to them about. In fact, if I was betting, I would say there's probably some sort of conversation going on. Now, one thing that is real weird is the closest that we've got to actual information. So this comes from the forum moderation team. Now, those are actually not Private Division staff. They've basically done a post saying that they'll do as much as they can. It's really weird. I'll read it out for you. Folks, we're in a very unsettled transitional situation. An unsettled transitional situation. That definitely sounds grim. Most, or perhaps all, of our parent company's staff have been laid off. We do not know what the new management's intentions are for the game or for the forum. We're trying to find that out, but so far without success. You should probably prepare yourselves for the possibility the forum could be shut down at any time, possibly without warning. Until we hear one way or another, it's our intention to go on moderating as we have been doing under the same rules. We wish we had better news, and they basically say, that's all that we know. So they said that. Some people got a little extra spooked, so they did do a follow-up post saying, to emphasize that they're not saying the forum will be shut down. They're essentially saying it could be shut down because they don't really know what's going on. They point out that loads of games have forums that continue long after the game is done, and if nothing else, KSP1 is still something that people are buying and playing, so its forum may continue to be sorted, and they basically say that they themselves are in a vacuum of information. So the unspoken warning here is that the Kerbal Space Program forums, which contain years of advice for modding on, say, KSP1, as well as records for the community, that is at risk, right? And the moderators basically want to ensure that people have got a chance to back the whole thing up. Usually when a team says that, their actual intent is for people to start doing archival work so that important stuff isn't lost. And in a franchise like KSP, that's extremely important because you're talking about complex builds and people putting in a hell of a lot of work. I mean, you know, classic old school games facts, just gigaposts that are full of amazing info, which is the opposite of what Take-Two have been providing because we have no info from them. As a public, we can look at Warren, we can look at LinkedIn, we can look at forums, we can see the actual people impacted by this decision talking about them no longer working at the company and not working in the game, but the people who actually ordered that decision, even though we've known about this for like 60 days, right, over 60 days now. They have not acknowledged any of it, and that is the thing that to me is the most absolutely insane. I suppose for them, it's business as usual. KSP is an asset, KSP2 is an asset, it should be on Steam, getting them sales. Again, apparently, regardless of what the experience is going to be for their potential new customers. And that is not how you should be treating customers. So this is honestly a disgraceful situation. Everything that led into KSP2 does seem to have been, a total mess. The last time I talked about the KSP situation, we went into that story, so I won't do it here. You can check out that video instead. I mean, it's not happening to the biggest game franchise in the world, but I think it actually matters more when it's happening to these niche franchises, because they're often sometimes the only thing that are scratching that itch for players. So whenever they go down and have existential problems, it has a disproportional impact on people's people's hobby time, because there is not always readily another game that is competing for the same slice of the market. That's why I think that matters. So let me know what you think. Have you been impacted by KSP? Do let me know. I will be back tomorrow. So thanks for hanging out. I'll see you then. doubling down on a practice that historically they're actually kind of terrible at. They basically think that the future of Assassin's Creed is going to be built at least partially on doing remakes. Thing is, though, when you take a look back at their history of remasters and things, especially in Assassin's Creed, it's pretty damn messy. I mean, take a look at the Ezio collection or even the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster, and then the Prince of Persia remaster that just keeps on getting kicked down the road. So the question then, what has actually changed? What are they going to do, and why do they think that this can pay off? And I suppose to give you a bit of a hint, it's going to look like Capcom. They hope. P.S. Here's today's sponsor. So their CEO announced this via the bold strategy of an interview with himself. That's just the kind of thing that big companies do for PR. Anyway, in that, basically, we learned things. It may not be yearly as much as they would like that, but essentially the plan is variety between core titles like Shadows and then less expensive ones like, say, Mirage and Hex. And to bridge the gaps, they want to do remakes and follow-ups for older entries in the franchise, essentially bringing them up to modern standards. Now, that they said follow-up is certainly something that's got me thinking. I mean, I don't know how you do that with Ezio, but I could certainly see it for other protagonists. Now, that being said, there is a bit of a problem, and that problem is we've seen their other remakes. The most notable one, of course, is the Prince of Persia remake that has just been in development for years, essentially development hell. What happened is Ubisoft leadership gave the IP to a studio who had only done support work. They seemingly didn't give them enough guidance. That led to public materials being released that people essentially just laughed at, and, well, now the project is being handled by other people within Ubisoft, I believe. And, yeah, it just keeps on getting delayed. Another thing that is going on is a Splinter Cell revival, but again, we have heard, like, basically nothing about that. And then within the Assassin's Creed franchise, their re-releases have not been that successful. As an example, right, they bundled Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation in with the Ultimate Edition for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Problem is, though, here's the critic scores, which, are really not great. Now, these were pretty damn weird because functionally they were the same games. They had a graphical update, but it was an update, not an overhaul. And that basically meant that while you could compare them, and you could see that some things technically may be a little bit more expensive to run, a little bit more advanced, well, a lot of the artistry wasn't really there as much. And this is, I mean, especially with lighting, this is a critique that we keep on having with remasters of games. Plus, perception-wise, these felt a little bit cheap to me because they came off as just being experiments to sell an entirely different game's Ultimate Edition upgrade. Now, of course, there is the other branch, which is the Ezio collection, and thankfully it did fare better, but once again, you have that thing, especially with lighting, where it just didn't feel like all of the original artistic intent got in there. Reviews-wise, it did fare a bit better though, right? So you're looking at a 74 from critics, but only a 42 recommend, which is basically just people saying, it's fine. So, none of these were particularly successful, but it is important that we put them in the right context. These are not remakes. These are remasters, and of course, remasters were very much the thing back in the day, like especially with the PS4 generation. It seemed with the PS4 and the Xbox One, you had like hardware that was maybe a bit more easy to develop for, and there was quite a hunger in customers to get some of those older games onto the newer hardware. So that kind of thing happened quite a bit. But nowadays, well, Capcom has happened, and that's essentially set an entire new standard. So let's dive back into what Yves Guillemot said and essentially work out what we can expect here. Players can be excited about some remakes, which will allow us to revisit some of the games we've created in the past and modernize them. There are worlds in some of our older Assassin's Creed games that are extremely rich. Now, certainly if you were going to go to me and say, hey, Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and we're just going to make something new in that continuity, I mean, I'd be pretty excited about that. And while Mirage certainly helped to scratch a little bit of like the original Altair itch, it would be kind of neat to see some other stuff with him in it that is also set in the like Crusades era. Anyway, so that's what they're doing, and obviously we're all thinking about the Resident Evil remakes in Capcom. And for Ubisoft, this is a blessing and a curse, because whenever Yves says remake, that actually makes me excited, because I think about some of these games that robbed you younger, and then getting the Resident Evil 4 treatment. Thing is, though, it's also an extremely high bar, especially with Resi 4, and because that has essentially set the standard for doing this right, well, that's what Ubisoft are going to be competing against. But the thing is, when we dive in a more technical level, there's actually another comparison to make. So one of the things that's really helped Capcom is the Reach for the Moon engine. You'll commonly hear people just call it the RE engine because Reach for the Moon engine's a pretty insane name for a piece of software. Anyway, It's great, and that's essentially powered all of their modern output. Now, for Ubisoft, they've got Anvil, right? So Anvil is what they use for the Assassin's Creed games, as well as the likes of, say, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, which sadly is not going to be followed up on. But essentially, they have large teams that have worked a hell of a lot in that engine. It's a modern engine that is clearly quite flexible and very, very capable. I mean, hell, they even ended up in a funny situation with Assassin's Creed Unity where their engine was actually powering things that were amazingly cool. Problem is, it kept on breaking. But anyway, the cycle that they've been following is a full Assassin's Creed game being built, and the engine basically being updated and refined for the next game, just branching, updating, that kind of thing as they go on. Now, this is something we've talked about recently on the channel in the context of Total War and Creative Assembly, where a key problem in this model was them having loads of overlapping development. That meant that improvements made in some game projects did not get folded back into the core engine. So that's the struggle CA have had. For Ubisoft, it could be a little different, and this is where we've got to go to some of Insider Gaming sources who have talked about Anvil Engine, which they actually now call Anvil Pipeline internally. This is from their article. Sources explain that Anvil Pipeline allows all of the various Assassin's Creed studios, of which there are many, to work from one unified branch rather than having different versions and branches. This means that moving forward, Assassin's Creed will benefit visually from the likes of ray trace, global illumination, and virtual geometry. The move to Anvil Pipeline has meant that the teams have had to completely overhaul everything in the series too, including animations, the parkour system, dynamic weather, and more. So, it seems to me that this approach is key to Ubisoft's plan, because the problem with the Assassin's Creed remasters is they were basically just doing a bit of a refurbishment, a little bit of new paint, but the actual gameplay wasn't any different. Thing is, when you look at Resident Evil 4, right, it's not just a modernization in technology, it also is a modernization in game feel, and that is what people will actually want here. It's the lack of that that explains the lukewarm reactions to the prior games that they did remasters of, and it's something that we can actually contrast with the far warmer approach to Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. Yeah, we're probably all still wondering, where is Beyond Good and Evil 2? But anyway, that Anniversary Edition is overhauling the game and also making a point of adding in, like, loads of extra dev content to basically justify its existence. So if they can get close to what Capcom are doing, we could be cooking. Thing is, though, they actually were in an insane cadence with Assassin's Creed back in the day. The funny thing is, I remember this happening when I was younger, and we're actually now at the stage where loads of people may not even know that this kind of thing went down. And that problem is Assassin's Creed fatigue. This is what happened when they just had yearly releases, right? Yearly releases that didn't really shake up the gameplay a massive amount. And it's a bit of a strange thing, because if you take a game like, say, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, I know there's plenty of people who really like that, but again, it was just a victim of there being a new Assassin's Creed every single year, without fail, and really without enough innovation between them. I absolutely don't want that problem to happen again, and it seems that their strategy is that instead of just more Assassin's Creed, it's going to be more Assassin's Creed, but also different Assassin's Creed. That's something that Yves talked to when he pointed out that Assassin's Creed Hex is a very different experience to Assassin's Creed Shadows. Of course, if you look at Shadows and compare that to Mirage, well, yeah, those are obviously pretty different. They're maybe thinking that if they're just throwing in some remakes or maybe just new game experiences that are within the worlds of those remakes, that basically that is going to be more, but people will probably be happy to buy it as just an ongoing big live service Assassin's Creed forever, which is kind of what they'd already been doing with Valhalla. So you actually can see the logic. Like, it's really the direction lots of us thought they were going in whenever we first heard about Assassin's Creed Infinity, which was supposed to be the kind of like Assassin's Creed hub that all other Assassin's Creed lives inside. Now we've actually found out recently from Stephen Totilo that it's no longer called Infinity, right? So Infinity's dead, now it's Animus, which in fairness is actually straight up way better branding. I suppose it brings us to a weird position then, because if you look at something like Call of Duty, for a while they were trying to have different Call of Duty every year, like different types of movement tech, you know, as you move from, say, I think it was like Advanced Warfare to Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, they were changing a hell of a lot. If you look at Total War, it seemed that between historical, between Warhammer, and then also the Saga titles, that they basically just wanted to have that amazing yearly cadence. But again, they just had that problem where the Saga titles didn't really feel different enough. The whole thing kind of went ground. For Ubisoft, though, I think I can see what they're going for. If you like parkour and assassinations, then basically play Assassin's Creed Mirage. If you want something weird and different, go for Hex. If you want a just humongous open world, big, modern, expensive mega RPG, then, well, go go play Shadow. And for the nostalgia play, they can just do full remakes of the Ezio games. I mean, hey, they could do a full remake of Assassin's Creed 1, but perhaps bulk out the experience, because we all know Assassin's Creed 1, while it was groundbreaking in many, many ways, was also very, very repetitious. So actually, I think this plan could go somewhere, but it's all going to hinge on the quality of execution. As an example, I remember seeing lots of people talk about just the sharpness of the dialogue, the care and attention put into cinematography and that sort of thing in a game like Assassin's Creed Mirage, and that basically being a fairly rough comparison when you actually just go and look at the Ezio games. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious it's because Mirage was a lower budget game, and a lot of the time lower budget just means there will be less work put into the camera angles. There'll be a bit less time in the script, that kind of thing. For me though, that's kind of not enough. When I think about Assassin's Creed, I remember, yes, sometimes goofy dialogue, but actually a lot of it was pretty damn sharp. It was sharp, it was engaging, there was a lot of intrigue, and just camera angles, cinematic flair. They did a real good job of all that. So if they can bring that level of quality and I suppose mastery of the craft to a pipeline like this, we could absolutely be cooking. And we know that Ubisoft have many studios. So they absolutely have got the headcount for this. But I'm just left, at the end of the day, thinking that naturally, as sizes get bigger and bigger and bigger, expertise dilutes, quality dilutes, talent dilutes. And it's not for any horrible reason, it's really, really hard to scale a team. And Ubisoft have got some of the most scaled up teams that you basically see in games production. So I suppose I'm definitely left with causes for concern, but on the other hand, this is a strong IP, and injecting some variety into that experience and then doing remasters, if they are Capcom quality. Anyway, that's pretty much us for this one. However, if you want to hear a tale of game executives losing their marbles, well, guess what? We got another video for you. So check it out next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there. Welcome back. Today we get to talk about absolutely crazy stuff. So, Sega, they're doubling down on live services. That is obviously not a surprise to us. What is, though, is they're hoping that a revival of Crazy Taxi as a games as a service open world title, somehow that will be enough to bring in people's money. Yes, Crazy Taxi as a live service MMO-like thing. Crazy Taxi. That's apparently what's going on. Now, in slightly less insane news, we've got Capcom actually doing what they do pretty good. They're carrying the Resident Evil remake energy into Dead Rising, so that'll be fun to get into. And then there's Konami, who we do get to chuckle at, because they're almost being too respective of the past, in the form of a 2013 decision that is stopping people from accessing decade-old games. It is very, very, very silly, especially when it's, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which absolutely slaps. In fact, okay, Crazy Taxi, the live service. What the hell is going on? Basically, Sega have revealed that the upcoming reboot to Crazy Taxi is going to be a massively multiplayer online game. So good, I can finally quit World of Warcraft, go completely away from Blizzard, and play Crazy Taxi as my MMO of choice. Now, we know a bunch more info because of a developer interview/recruitment video. This was posted to YouTube. It came from a job recruitment page. It was spotted by Video Games Chronicle. So we've basically learned that Sega have got very, very high expectations of global success for, yes, Crazy Taxi, MMO, Unreal Engine. Now, if you're not aware, this is a resurrection of something from the arcade/Dreamcast. Yeah, we don't really talk about Dreamcast much. Just kind of sad. Anyway, from 1999, it's an open-world driving game designed around getting passengers to their destination as fast as is possible. There's that. You may remember the game that came out before, Simpsons Hit and Run. That was, loosely inspired by Crazy Taxi. Anyway, the TLDR basically is, you're a taxi driver, you gotta get people to their destination as quickly as you can. Now, this is an era where big picture we got the likes of Forza Horizons, okay? So we got Forza Horizons. It shows that this business model seems to work, so because of that, you can see how Sega may be interested. What is odd, though, is we can see the gameplay, and you know what? Fair enough, that actually looks pretty decent. Now, Sega say that they're testing a multiplayer version of the classic arcade mechanics. They're basically doing that. They're trying to mix in some new stuff. In terms of location, well, it is a massive theme park map that's basically inspired by the west coast of the US. So in a way, I think you can see what they're converging on design-wise here. It's probably not full Crazy Taxi, But you know what? If you're maybe getting a bit of Crazy Taxi, maybe a bit of Burnout in terms of just craziness, wackiness, which all works for this IP, you can basically see that working. A more juiced up kind of explosion and boosters and stuff, I don't know, full version of a driving game than maybe what you're getting in Forza Horizons, even though it can get a little bit more fantastical itself. The thing that is a little worrying, though, is scope and expectations, because they do seem to be high, and as we all know in the games industry, our budgets and our dev timelines are just going up and up and up, and it's kind of crazy. The tricky thing is we don't have everything fully official, but there are statements that have came out from multiple different leakers pointing towards basically them looking at Fortnite, looking at GTA Online, and then taking a look at their older IP and basically thinking, okay, we'll choose the bad ending, and this is how we will revive Crazy Taxi. And look, I'm not saying that it's going to be terrible. I am saying I'm a little bit suspicious and confirmed. Now, that's not the end of the story. There are actually other games, and maybe even another Crazy Taxi game. So there's leaked images of a supposed Jet Set Radio remake, something that is unrelated to, free-to-play reboot stuff. So it basically seems that they're working on quite a lot of things, and that further reinforces some unverified leaks that essentially say that the games as a service version of Crazy Taxi may not actually be the first Crazy Taxi that we get, that instead we might actually get a remake first. So essentially we could be in a world where there is a remake of Crazy Taxi, a remake of Jet Set Radio, and then some sort of games as a service version of both, and that those are basically separate products. Now, of course, me and you are probably cynical by default, but looking at this, you can see a bit of a logic, right? They see that the live service thing is where the real money is. They think that there's enough of a niche in both of these games. Do you know what? Maybe there is. I think the question, though, is how big does that niche need to be in order for them to actually justify making like a full, big, expensive version of those games? The idea, though, that they'd be doing full remakes beforehand to basically grease the wheels with like audience recognition, to actually get those games like out into the market, sort of making older fans happy, generating positive buzz, that does make a lot of sense. I'd say personally, I'm maybe less interested in Crazy Taxi, more interested in Jet Set Radio, because that inspired so many people. Anyway, where I'm in this one is I certainly wouldn't put down like the down payment for the funeral costs for this entire thing. I'd say that even if it goes completely tits up, at least we might get two pretty good remakes. That'd be sort of nice. And speaking of remakes, our next story, Capcom. So here's the deal with Capcom. The overall context to the story is they basically are the kings of doing amazing remasters. We've just seen that with Resi. I mean, playing Resi 2, 3, and 4 remaster like properly back to back. That was an amazing experience. They are super high quality. In this case, it's Dead Rising. Yes, Dead Rising, that game from 2006, around the start of that console when, if you were about my age, which basically means young teenager, you saw goofy shenanigans, zombies everywhere. That was still at the time when zombies was kind of, cool and not a little bit overdone. So, that's the game. Now, this is an odd story because this will be the second remaster. They did one in 2016. What this game is number one, coming out September 19th this year, so very soon. It's on Steam, Xbox, and PS5, and they say it's a deluxe remaster, which is basically their way of saying, they're going to put some effort into it, and it's not a quick, make it a little bit more polished and just throw it out for some money. Usually I'm sus, but they do have a pretty good track record. The director actually said this: well, actually, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call this game a remake, considering the work we put in. And certainly when you look at the level of detail being changed, it's clearly not just polish. You can see the footage for yourself, but basically the TLDR is overhauled graphics, 4K 60 support, which is very good, and revamped mechanics, right? They're calling it quality of life, and that basically means things like moving while aiming, pretty crazy, updated movement controls, autosaves, a remade UI, that kind of thing, and that's also with it being fully voiced and a whole bunch of other updates. And at least partially, this is just because they've rebuilt it in RE Engine, which is of course the technology that has driven all of the recent Resi remakes. Now, funny thing, you may think that RE Engine means like Resident Evil Engine. No, it means Reach for the Moon Engine. That's where the R and the E come from, I guess. And basically, it's the core of all of Capcom's production right now. It is what powered those extremely successful Resi remakes. So it basically makes sense that they now look into their back catalog, see the various games from that very strange era where they were really, they were just targeting more things at the West. I'm definitely thinking of, was it Lost Planet? The Planet Snow game. Anyway, point is, it makes sense that they look at the IP that they've got. And in this case, I think this is a really, really good example of a game for this treatment. What is good to hear, though, is they're talking about the new tech not changing the game. talking about basically how the original concept for the limited time story is intact. The game systems are intact. It's basically just them building it again, making it a bit more approachable, better quality of life, better graphics, better usability, that kind of thing. Which honestly is pretty damn sick. Unlike what's happening with Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, the best titled game in the universe. And this is a really bizarre story. So here's the deal. Revengeance came out in 2013. It was made by Platinum Games and Konami. It came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Now, it's been on PC, on Steam since 2014, but it suffered from very strange regional DRM. As an example, right, the 360 version of the game was cancelled in Japan. So because of that, you couldn't download the game for PC in loads of regions. As an example, India. So if you're in India, you want to play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance? Sorry, you can't. Not on PC. Well, without raising the black flag, and this certainly does look like a good use case for the black flag. Anyway, as of the 4th of July, the game is on GOG, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure Senator Armstrong would like the idea of that. Thing is, though, not all of the DRM is gone, and this very boggling decision, it was first spotted by Automation Media. So this is crazy. They told GameSpark that the GOG release will maintain parity with Steam and any other region previously limited. So basically, it's on good old games, but it still is region locked. And what's really bizarre here is the game is available in Japan via PS3 discs, so it really should be available there. And this is just one of those weird things. The idea of, well, game regulation and stuff like that. Funny thing, right? You know the whole Stellar Blades, like, you know, it's not censored thing? That's actually pertaining to Japan. That's something that most people on the internet don't know. So whenever the PR people said, Stellar Blade is coming out in all regions uncensored, what they were referring to is the treatment of blood in Japan. So Stellar Blade was able to get around this, but you've got titles like Callisto Protocol that literally did not release in Japan because of those, because of those regulations, because of, I suppose, the rules around blood. Even the likes of, say, Dead Space actually had to go through some changes in order to release in the region. That was recently an issue, of course, of the Dead Space remaster, which is all, you know, funky stuff. And it basically means that Konami have managed to perfectly honor the past with this release, which normally is good. The problem is that that's just in the form of honoring very bizarre and nonsensical regional limitations. That's a strange story. Does it impact you or me? Probably not. Yeah, anyway, that's the point. Go play Revengeance. If you don't know why people think Senator Armstrong is pretty damn funny, well, suffice to say, you should play it. It just goes hard. It goes hard. Anyway, that's it for me. I will see you back here again tomorrow, so thank you for hanging out, and goodbye. It's time to talk about Concord. Essentially what Concord is a hero shooter. It's a hero shooter. It is done by a studio that Sony acquired because they basically demoed the game, really liked it, and essentially went and acquired the company. It's also a part of Sony's massive live service strategy. Well, once it was massive, they then humongously cut it. to ribbons. But of course, it's the same strategy that produced the likes of the Bungie acquisition and also games like Helldivers 2. So, for Sony, this is a pretty damn important thing. The problem, though, is people looked at it whenever the trailers came out, and they essentially thought, what? Another hero shooter in 2024? We don't really need this. Also, why does it look like Overwatch Guardians of the Galaxy? So it very much was not the sort of reveal that they would have wanted. Maybe you could say the thing that could turn that around is players actually getting hands-on time playing the game, and that has just happened with the closed beta for this game. Problem is, like Helldivers, this is coming out on both PC and PlayStation, and that means that the PC version, which is on Steam, has got trackable player numbers. Those player numbers were very, very, very small, and that has got people spooked. Maybe even so spooked that they're now saying, this game needs to go free to play, or else it's basically dead in the water. Because that's the thing. It's not free to play. It's following Helldivers 2 in terms of launch format and price. And if you think about it, the devs are saying that the only monetization after the fact is going to be cosmetics. That basically has it being the same as Overwatch 1. Overwatch came out, it was $40, and as we know, it was supported by those dastardly loot boxes. The odd thing, though, is 2016 was just a bloodbath for games, and not that many successful games would come out at similar price points that we're going for the PvP mass market. Now, this year also had the likes of Titanfall 1, Battlefield 1, and Lawbreakers. Lawbreakers very much existing in the same category as Battleborn. Dead game. Then another big thing happened in 2016. PUBG was extremely successful, and Epic Games were making a little game called Fortnite Save the World where you'd fight zombies and build shit. Thing is, they took a look at PUBG, thought, oh shit, we'll have some of that, and then Fortnite happened. It was an absolutely humongous success, and it was, of course, a free-to-play game that was supported by cosmetics. Now, in that span of time, we have seen other games essentially try to do the exact same thing that Overwatch 1 did. As an example, Rocket Arena, Knockout City, and Bleeding Edge. All examples of that business model that completely just failed and exploded. Now, we've also seen some free-to-play games that try to rip out the free-to-play and basically go to a paid model. One of those is Gigantic Rampage Edition, which now, with Season 1 of Ranked about to launch, has got user reviews that are essentially turning in the game because the player numbers are low. That's because the network effect cuts both ways, and loss aversion is something that we are all very, very, very aware of. My point there being, with loads of games, as more people buy that game, the value you get out of your purchase increases because there's more and more and more players, and that's what allows a game to snowball and grow. But just as that can happen, the very opposite can happen. Not enough people buy the game for you to think that it's worth buying the game, therefore the game ends up in a negative death spiral, and you essentially have a Lawbreakers-like situation. And in that context, we talk about the big new thing from PlayStation, Concord. It's coming out soon, it's going to be $40, and it's PlayStation's next attempt in their grand live service strategy that's just a little bit less grand than was initially planned to be. Because as you may remember, last year they made humongous sweeping cuts to loads of those projects and loads of their teams. From my personal read, it very much seems like Sony just kind of wanted one of everything in the live service realm. You got Destiny for your PvE loot shooter, you've maybe got the Call of Duty project that they wanted to have to maybe fight Call of Duty, and of course here, the hero shooter. Now, it's all very familiar. 5v5 gameplay, 6 modes at launch. With those modes, there's been some criticism. Some people would say that those are the classics of the genre that you want to see. Other people would say, well, they're exactly what one would expect, and there's nothing here that's enough of a differentiator to actually make this game stand out in the market. Now, of course, the reason we're talking about this today is because people have actually played it. Now, there is praise for this game, right? The thing is, there is a core level of polish and competency that just exists, and that's because this is a game that is very obviously made by experienced developers who have done a lot of iteration themselves and basically know what they're doing. Now the thing is, gameplay is only half of this story, because the other half is headlines, vibes, and price, all wrapped up together. When people see a game that's giving them a truly new feeling fantasy, maybe a totally new type of gameplay, I think they might be willing to put up some money. The problem is, though, if it's $40 for what looks like, on first glance, another hero shooter that resembles Guardians of the Galaxy, that's not going to make people excited. Polish, character gameplay, that's like here. It's actually well above fine, but emotionally, it's not hitting. Helldivers 2 hit emotionally. And where we learn a lot is when the devs actually try to justify the $40 price tag. They say, right, you get 16 characters, 12 maps, and 6 modes. All the seasonal content is free, and yeah, there's some stuff to further personalize your characters that'll be coming in a per season basis. and that's the extra money spent. So you can totally see, if you just break it down as a bunch of line items, I think $40 for a whole bunch of game that you just keep on playing, that's going to have a whole bunch of free content, that is an absolutely fantastic price. And hell, we've also got to assume that that $40 also includes the PvE mode that they kind of teased at the end of the beta's credits. So in theory, this is almost exactly as a game what audiences had been asking for if you just break it down by features. It's almost like an anti-Overwatch 2. It's a very clear deal. Long-term support built from an initial success, extra monetization in the form of cosmetics, that is to support a bunch of free content, but basically it's not going to be pulling a bunch of bullshit. It's not going to be the bizarre give me money please fiesta that Overwatch 2 has turned into. So why then is the $40 price tag just drawing comments, say, across the internet? Like even seeing the Concord Discord, people being concerned that the game costs money, and that then being countered by people saying, hey, look at Overwatch 2, that's free to play and we really don't like that. And if you've been here for a while, you've probably seen our coverage of loads of $40 games, because it turns out that $40 seems to be a great price point for PvE, co-op and AA titles. We've seen so many of them this year. I mean, Helldivers 2 told Sony that they could get a healthy audience with a $40 game. And yeah, there is concurrency stuff with Helldivers that's being talked about now, but that's a separate video that literally already exists in the channel, so let's not do that whole tangent here. What I'd say is that Helldivers fundamentally is, it's obviously a PvE game, right? And it's one that gives you an experience that you cannot really get elsewhere at that level of fidelity and scale. It felt new and different. I mean, yes, obviously there's very heavy inspirations with, with Starship Troopers. Point is, it didn't really feel like the Starship Troopers in video games itch had been scratched by something quite as well as Helldivers was able to do. It was then presented absolutely pitch perfect. It's that kind of thing, don't market your game, start a cult. And in a way, I'm not joking. Think about all the community memes. Think about the way that game is designed to basically foster a sort of collective consciousness, even with the little details of you being able to call your ship the Stallion of Freedom at the very start of the game. And so it's that novelty and that culture that gave Helldivers 2 so much of its perceived value. And that's where I think with Concord, they're having some struggles in how they're communicating this game to people, because people do not just think of a game in terms of quantity of content, list of features. No, they think about it emotionally. That is why games can sell loads of copies on day one, because the perceived value of something when it's new is literally higher, because a lot of people are willing to pay more money, even though they know within 2 months it will be discounted quite a bit. So that is to say, in a way, when it comes to pricing, perception is reality, and what they're struggling with here is perception. And the perception very much is that paid PvP games just fail in the market, almost simple as. I think quite well put by this meme, but basically, right, Newzoo put together the most played games in 2023 by monthly active users, and you can take a look at the exclusive PvP games that are here. And when you do that, you find Fortnite, Counter-Strike 2, Warzone, Apex, Valorant, and even Rocket League, all of which are free-to-play games. Now, there is Rainbow Six Siege and COD's multiplayer. Obviously, though, COD is a unique case, right? Definitely a unique case. And with Rainbow Six Siege, I mean, that thing has been so often on discounts that basically mean it may as well be free. You also see that those games are at least 6 or 7 years old, which means a deeply entrenched audience. How the hell as a new game are you going to change those patterns of behavior? Those habits. I mean, if you ever tried to change a habit before, even when it makes a lot of sense to change it, it's bloody hard. You'll also notice that while there's loads of shooters there, they all feel pretty damn different. Having an other hero shooter, another iteration of something that people basically already have and have been able to access for a long time, that is going to be a pretty hard thing. And that's the problem with Concord. It's not going to expand the FPS audience. A game like Overwatch was able to expand the FPS audience, but again, it was new. It was 2016. Helldivers probably did do a little bit of audience expansion, but that's because it was so deeply, well, mimetic and unique feeling. It felt like a cultural event that you couldn't miss. So yeah, people would be slurped in by the gravity of that. If you're Concord, it is by default a humongous uphill battle. How do you cut through? Well, the setting and theme is maybe a bit of Star Wars, a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy. The hero's direction looks like Overwatch from a glance. Game format looks like another hero shooter. Now, they're trying to cook with some competitive-friendly things. They're trying to change up the hero shooter model by not having ults and doing the whole thing with passives, which, let's be real, a lot of players will probably not like. And there's going to be weekly story. But what is weekly story? Is it just a new cinematic every week? I mean, look, the facial animations are impressive, and actually, the dialogue in those scenes, pretty sharp. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Thing is, though, that's not what I'm paying $40 for at all. And that is to say that value is in the eyes of the beholder, and it's very much an emotional experience and a cultural experience. That is one of the things that makes us assign value to a game. Helldivers, you know what? See all that? All those words I just said? Let's just shorten it and call it the sauce. And that's why Helldivers 2 has got the sauce. And why, when you look at this game and you reductively think, oh, it's just Guardians of the Galaxy Overwatch, I don't care. Well, point is, it does not immediately have the sauce. Now, PlayStation do believe that there is an audience for this game. The early previews for the game have not been bad. Sony basically seemed to enjoy the game so much when they were doing some playtesting sessions that they decided to pick up the damn studio. And so that means there likely will be a cohort of players that will buy this game and probably enjoy this game. Question is, will there be enough of them to actually make a big difference for Sony? And that's where the Battlestar fan in me says all of this has happened before and all of this will happen again, because the idea of paid PvP and Sony has happened before and it's not went well. Do you remember the amazing title Destruction All-Stars? It was very bizarre. It's a PvP car combat game that was unveiled with the PS5 itself, set to launch November 2020. It was made by Lucid Studios. That's a mixture of people from Blur and from Project Gotham. That's like big names. Guess what, though? It was going to be $70. $70, and then, of course, live service with paid cosmetics. Now, that seemed to be a obviously awful idea, so what they did is the old PlayStation special of, no, let's just make it entirely free to users to download if they have got PS Plus. They've done it with Rocket League, they did it with Fall Guys. So, with that in mind, how well did this multiplayer title with a brand new IP do? Well, what we can do is take a look at this chart that shows full game titles on PSN ranked by revenue and downloads until the 11th of June 2023. That, of course, is from the hack that happened last year. And you'll see that this game is ranked 323 in terms of digital revenue, and even worse, 395 in terms of downloads, with 20,000 downloads total. That kind of shocked me. I just thought so many people had PS Plus and would probably download something that would have been a larger number, but there you go. Very much not the case. And I suppose that's the risk of PvP games. They feel inherently so much more winner takes all than PvE. Because in a PvE game, you can pop in, you can have your fill of game while it's still new and fresh, you can leave happy. And if the player counts absolutely tank, well, you know what? You can still fire that up with your mates who have got the game and you can play some of it later. But with PvP, people treat that as if you are investing your time in the right sport. And I know that might sound a little bit ridiculous, and not everybody is trying to be a Valorant person. But, that's likely why the $40 thing here is scary. Because this is a game targeted at FPS fans. FPS fans will therefore be thinking, it's a new game. Takes a long time to learn a whole bunch of new maps, to learn a whole bunch of new abilities and all of that stuff. Am I going to bother, or will I just wait to see if this game has actually got legs? That's the thing. It didn't matter that I enjoyed my time playing Lawbreakers. Not enough people played Lawbreakers for Lawbreakers to basically continue existing. And so with Concord, that's why, even though it looks really polished, at the end of the day, the vibes are just off, and the amorphous thing that is the sauce is just not in this game. And I think people can tell. The funny thing, though, is we may be having this discussion again next year, and that's because of Fair Game Dollar. I think it's probably supposed to be Fair Games, but hey, they called it Fair Game Dollar, so I'm just going to call it Fair Game Dollar. Now, it's a game that's coming from Haven Studios. That's a studio founded by Jade Raymond, and it's a game that, compared to Concord, I actually think could have a little bit more sauce, and that's because it's a competitive heist game. Few games are doing that, and yes, you do have the likes of, say, a Payday 3 that is in the heist video game space, but Payday 3, kind of struggling. Payday 2, getting a little bit old in the tooth. Like, I think it's just obvious to most of us that that's just a game that could just have legs in today's market in a way that it really does not look like Concord can. Now, that being said, there is one way that Concord can change up this narrative, and that is the open beta, because that's where we're going to see some true Steam numbers. With the closed beta, the Steam numbers looked awful, and that reflected minuscule pre-orders. Obviously, why are you going to pre-order a PvP game when you don't really know if it's going to have legs and take off? That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No, a game like this is not one that's going to be getting amazing pre-orders like Overwatch was, because it was big and new and amazing and whatever, people hadn't seen it before. No, the thing that can change the story for this is if it actually blows away mass audiences when they can do the PC open beta. And if that open beta then gives lots of really good numbers that then translate into positive headlines. But of course, that's not enough. It's not enough. Even if you are a game like that, like say the Finals, that had strong public tests, that is free to play, that can, you just go, you can play it almost right now depending on your internet. But even though it is sitting there with between like 15, 20,000 players, maybe 25,000 players, decently consistently, even though that's the case, guess what? It still fell below its company's expectations. And now people are probably worried about the Finals. And even with that, the Finals is a game that I think had quite a bit more cut through with the public, because when you looked at it, you saw the pretty damn impressive destruction tech. People remembered that from the likes of Battlefield. They saw this fast-paced game that looks really fun, so it had a lot going for it, and even it has struggled, even though it was free to play. That just means that I think, Concord is going to have an extremely rough time, and in a way that's not necessarily the fault of the game. It's just, it is what it is, and it's probably the wrong thing for 2024, and that must hurt a hell of a lot. That's the thing that you've been working on. One of the sad facts is often it's not about how hard you row, it's about what boat you're in. And if you're not in a winning boat, well, there's only so much you can do to change that. That definitely is one of life's more sobering lessons. So there you go. On that dismal note, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be back again tomorrow with more, so I'll catch you then. Sometimes we just can't have nice things. Today, though, we get to understand why, and we get to see that, well, guess what? Sometimes the people who are in charge of producing video games don't actually care about those video games in the sort of sense of video games as an art form, as an experience, because today we have got ex-Rockstar developers confirming the death of story DLC at the altar of selling more shark cards, a literal money printing machine. Which is actually something that I would call a curse, because it's not a free money printing machine. No, this is a machine. It consumes developers. It outputs engagement. Engagement, though, is not quality. It certainly gets you hooked in a screen, but does it give you those moments in gaming, those amazing, say, narratives? That mission, that level that you'll never forget? No, this sort of thing does not give you that. And that's why I would far rather earn our keep and not have some sort of bizarre free infinite money machine. But with that said, let's talk about some GTA. Take-Two Interactive are certainly one of the villains of the channel recently. I mean, as an example, just take a look at this entire story with Kerbal Space Program 2. It basically shows them at their worst in just about every way. Now, the crazy thing is that to get our point of comparison, we've got to go all the way back to GTA 4. It's a game that was quite different. It did have some flaws, but it's almost universally agreed upon that the DLC was a refinement of all of the good, all of the promise that that game had. They were damn good expansions. They were critically acclaimed, people loved them, and they were so good that Xbox spent $50 million to have them be exclusive for their platform. So, whenever GTA 5 launched, people got excited, especially with the way the story of Trevor, Michael, and Franklin went, right? The whole swapping into the different characters. It was cool. It was novel, and Rockstar even announced story DLC in 2013. They said this: GTA 5 story mode updates. For those ready to jump back into the story of GTA 5, we have big plans for substantial additions in 2014. Suffice to say, those didn't happen. By May 2014, a patch actually accidentally revealed the existence of a DLC via a bunch of menu triggers. And what really caught people was an Agent Trevor expansion that seemed to have loads of updated content. But of course, we all know how the story went. No story DLC happened. A few of those, character beats, those happened as a part of GTA Online updates, but none of that was high-quality single-player content. Now, of course, I think we all knew that this was the case. We all could intuit it. And in 2017, Rockstar Director of Design Imran Shawar suggested in an interview that essentially the spiraling impact of the next-gen version of the game, which, remember, this came out on the 360 and the PS3, must have been a total nightmare to actually, have function on those consoles. Then it was next gen, then it was PC. That was a hell of a lot of technical development work. Then there was the online support, and also Red Dead Redemption 2. And so back in 2017, he basically said that those are the reason why we did not see that story DLC. It of course made sense to everybody. During that time though, GTA Online was quite literally a money printer. The game and the shark cards just meant that it was constantly in sales charts. And that was before roleplay, right? And if you're not aware, GTA roleplay basically exploded as a content creation thing. It gets crazy numbers, and I suppose when it kicked off, it was a bit of a revival, an upsurge for the game. Anyway, the unspoken truth, right, is that GTA Online was simply more valuable than any potential returns on an expansion. What's funny, though, is Red Dead 2 Online. Red Dead 2 Online, which is essentially something that they've just sunset and forgotten about. And that's because they weren't able to get GTA Online levels of player engagement and spend. So it's not even a world where we're talking about not getting Red Dead 2 DLC. It's actually a world where Red Dead 2 Online doesn't really get much effort because GTA Online is so damn big. Now, this was all assumptions and vibes. What's changed, though, is an interview with Rockstar senior camera artist and virtual cinematographer Joe Rubino with San Am Play on YouTube as a sort of a special 100th episode. And this is essentially what he said, edited down for clarity. His team was split to work in GTA DLC or Red Dead Redemption 2, and ultimately what happened is they got about half of a DLC done, then all work, right, just all hands on deck was moved to GTA Online. Here's the quote from him. GTA Online was so much of a cash cow and people were loving it so much that it was hard to make an argument that a standalone DLC would outcompete that. Which of course makes sense, it just would not pay to do that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that's abundantly obvious now, and I suppose probably was then. Now, Joe did say that in hindsight, it was profitable enough that basically they could have done both at once. And ultimately the DLC dying is basically something that left him feeling pretty sour. He was pretty frustrated because, as he said, they basically got halfway through making a DLC and then the thing was shit canned in favor of just more GTA Online forever. Now, the dynamics of all of this between, I suppose, organizations within an organization are interesting to me. Take-Two will obviously want Rockstar to be working on the highest ROI things, because it's not just about making money, obviously, it is about making the most money. To do an example from Blizzard, why make StarCraft 3 when you could make something that inherently, because of its genre, could be way, 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 way bigger? I guess the point is, once you reach a certain scale, you're literally not in the business of making certain types of games. And if Rockstar management were being grilled by Strauss Zelnick's management team at Take-Two, what would they say? How could they financially justify not putting all they can into GTA? And to extrapolate that to the generic case, well, why would you make a whole bunch of paid, high-quality content for people when you could just hook them in on some sort of live service game that is very, very, very compelling and just spend dev time making cosmetics for them to buy? That really is why we can't have nice things. And what I want to bring into this is a little game, a tiny game called Elden Ring, and an expansion, because we can all point to Erdtree and basically say, well, hey, look at that expansion. And I know this is absolutely cherry-picking, but the grim side of this is we've cherry-picked a ridiculously successful example just to show how overpowered this amazingly cherry-picked example is compared to something like GTA Online. So let's do some numbers. Elden Ring had somewhere in the region of 25 million sales before Erdtree launched. Erdtree, 5 days after launch, had shifted 5 million copies. That's basically a 20% attach rate, which is absolutely insane for the industry. Like, that is Nintendo-like numbers, and again, that's only after 5 days. Now, the revenue for this at $40 a pop with 5 million sales is basically around $400 million. Thing is, though, well, you've got to take into account platform stuff. So using 30% on Xbox and PlayStation, you'll be losing some to chargebacks, some to refunds, which I think will have been a bit more of a case here than they would have expected. But certainly you could say that after all is said and done, you're maybe looking at like a 200 million, a 250 million, which is a lot of money. And hey, this is all built atop a base game. Learning from all of that stuff, maybe reusing some assets. It took 2 years to produce, but certainly that's a lot of money in 5 days, and this is a DLC that will have a long tail. Thing is, though, as I said, this is one of the most cherry-picked examples you could possibly do for an expansion or DLC selling well. So let's just compare that to a bad quarter worth of revenue for GTA. The quarter specifically is Q1 2022. And, I mean, it was a sad one. I remember Q1 2022. It broke my heart for Take-Two investors because it only made $200 million during that quarter. And to properly get the mood from that, let's look at a tweet from back in 2022. This one is from Derek of Tweaktown, and this is what he said. GTA franchise earnings are down to pre-pandemic levels. Yes, it is so over. GTA made $202 million in Q1. This signals a few things. Comparatively lower GTA Online revenues, copies of GTA 5 sold at a discount, and Trilogy sales have nosedived. So yeah, a bad quarter is $200 million, and I think we can all say that's a hell of a lot less input than Shadow of the Erdtree took. Like, if you're not aware, Erdtree was a single expansion that took an entire team 2 years to produce. It ended well, but guess what? That was money in 2 years' time. How about you maybe guarantee money now, right? Cosmetics, subscription benefits, many purchasing opportunities. Do all of those. So if you're in the C-suite and you've got shareholders breathing down your neck, basically saying, your quarterlies, we want those to be good. We want to be seeing growth, because guess what? There's a whole bunch of other companies out there, and they are growing faster than you, meaning I'm losing money compared to what I could be earning if I keep my money with you. Because look, the reality is a lot of investing is not like a long-term buy and hold. We fundamentally believe in the fundamentals of this company. No, actually quite a lot does change based on quarterly and year-over-year numbers. And there are complex reasons for that I'm not going to bother to get into here because that's really out of scope for this video. Point is, if you're that CEO, what do you want to do? A single expansion that's going to take an entire team 2 years to make, that will release once to under 30% of an audience and then have a long tail of sales. That could be successful. As with Erdtree, it also may not be successful. What is important, though, is the unknown, because that's revenue in 2 years. You could do that, or you could just get to work right now with cosmetics right now this quarter. Subscription benefits you can do right now If you care about money, the answer obviously is going to be to do that, because from their perspective, it's short-term results that they can predict, that they can kind of build a model off. The thing is though, and I would certainly argue, that's trading off the fumes of your success, and in the case of GTA, it has undeniably been a just stupendous money printer for them. Thing is though, doing new content, right, maybe doing that Erdtree-like DLC or a new game, that's actually really important, because what that does is that upskills your staff. It maybe upskills new leaders within your company who can go on to lead new games, maybe lead new teams. It allows for experimentation space in mechanics, building up new assets, learning how to be a better developer, and then the holy grail, IP, long-term, brand value, emotional connection. That kind of thing, right? With the Overwatch store, with the Diablo store, with GTA Online, yeah, you might be having some fun with your friends, but basically that stuff is all junk food. It's not really creating a strong emotional link. Do you know what does that? Story. It is games actually being artistically strong, which is obviously the opposite of the way that games like this are going to be ran. The opposite of the mercenary decision making. That's why when you look at Apex Legends, instead of thinking, my god, Apex Legends, I wonder all of the things that they may be able to do now that they have this amazing brand. Are they doing those cool, daring things? No, they're not doing that. As we literally just covered, they're working out how to just get more money from the same thing. Something that will probably juice up their numbers now, but will probably set them up for future failures. And that gets to a fundamental thing. Why invest in the future when you can profit from the present? So if you want to know why things are a bit shit, I think that line basically just sums it up. That's basically it, isn't it? I mean, whenever I saw that line in this report, I thought, oh my god, Connor has basically he has captured the entire thing in one super goddamn powerful, line. So that's amazing. To support what the likes of Connor does, you can always check out bellular.games. And if you are a little bit curious about what's going on in the land of Apex Legends, which is very much a don't build the future, just profit from the present, well, check out this video next. Thanks for hanging out today, and I'll see you over there.
Guys, I'm gonna end it here. I will be back on later today. Take care.